birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. Yeah.
What is going on, Hive? Today is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. And I don't know what I just watched in that hearing. It certainly didn't feel like it was the full truth, nothing but the truth. So help anybody in that courtroom. I just feel like I was watching a script written by a Hollywood director who was on bath salts, and we're just rerunning the same movie over and over and over again with the evidence, the mountain of evidence that ties this man to the scene. And I already know there's going to be people that say, Birdie, you're just in denial. Shit, maybe I am in denial, but I can tell you this. I think this way about just about everything. And this would be no different. Any lawyer that sits next to their client and listens to the prosecution say what they're about to prove in court, and they say none of this information or some of this information hasn't been heard by the public or it's not known, and then just pretty much reads the PCA, to sit there and just say yes, 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 was odd. It was very wrong. It felt very wrong. So, anyways, that was my little rant. Had to get that off my chest. I got Sammy T Mafia backstage. I'm going to bring her up here in a second after I say what's up to the Hive. I see Phoenix is in here. Jody, Luna, Holly, Kathy, Moto Man. Man, you stay coming with the super chats. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, dude. Just wanted to say thanks for all the great thought-provoking shows. It was great getting to know you all. Keep the tinfoil hat on and low and keep the government out. They're listening. Moto Man out. Well, Moto Man, I hope you stay in the Hive and you hang out for a while, because the Hive's not going anywhere. What's Gucci, my Louie? Actually, I could say what's Gucci, my Lori, with that one up on the name. What's up, Purple? Jeremy, good to see you. Kittens will rule. Tech Girl, Gabby Girl, Ray, beautiful lie. I agree. Amina, absolutely. My brain hurts. Shannon. Karen's tuning in from the UK. What's up, my fellow cheesehead Doms? Velma's Glasses. That's a cool username. Nashville Blondie made it over from TikTok. One of the OGs over there. Good to see you. What's going on? Linda is tuning in from Connecticut. Brooke says she's in mourning. Karen, my head is spinning too. Janet's in South Georgia. Where's everybody else tuning in from? We got Savannah's in Texas. Sydney, Australia, the Hive down under. West Virginia. I love Amanda's profile picture. Another UK. North France. That's wow. How do you say hello in France? Bonjour, maybe. Florida, Nashville, Alberta, Canada, New Mexico. Welcome, my dog. Their first live. Yay, you is correct. Thanks for tuning in. Arkansas, Isle of Skye, Myrtle Beach. Indiana's in the house. North Florida, and we got somebody from Pittsburgh. Everyone's starting to say bonjour in the chat to our French friend. Jersey Shore, Spokane, middle of nowhere, Ohio. Doug Wilson. That's a perfect name to finish on, since Sammy T is the guest. The first time that Doug Wilson was in the chat, tied Sammy Pretzel with thinking it was Doug Wilson from the church. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to bring Sammy up. Sammy, what is going on?
Bonjour, mes amis.
What does that mean? Hello, my friends.
Hello, my friends. Or more like we should say bonsoir, which is
Bonsoir.
good evening. Bonsoir, good evening.
You know, I took 3 or 4 years of Spanish in high school, and my family and I, when I was like a freshman in college, we went on a family trip to one of those all-inclusive places, which is pretty much just America in Mexico, and everything's all like free. Like there was some comedian that was like, whenever Americans go to all-inclusives in Mexico, it's just like you kind of get this like power trip. It's like he makes a joke about it. He's like, I want 300 jalapeno poppers, not one more, not one less. And you just get whatever you want in these resorts. And it's like,
that's nice.
But where I was going with the language thing is we went to the mall, the American mall. Like they have like an American mall. We went to like the actual mall in the city. And I was the only one that kind of knew Spanish. And my father, not that he didn't believe me, he just thought he could do it better. And all my dad did, and thank you, Jeremy, so much for the super chat. You guys are awesome. Whenever I see those come in, I appreciate it. My dad just kind of spoke English with a Mexican accent. That's all he did.
He pulled a Hilaria Baldwin.
Oh, man. Well,
Bonjour.
Sammy, obviously today we were talking backstage about the hearing. What do you think about it?
I was disgusted. I thought it was the strangest thing I've ever witnessed thus far. It was very clinical and tense, but unsatisfying. And as the thing that bothered me the most was Bill Thompson's rendition of why he's guilty, which read just like the PCA. And parts of it were like, you will admit we couldn't put him in the house, couldn't place him there. He's listing cars that look like his, but weren't identified as his vehicle, circling the area. I mean, the whole thing just sounded like a fucking joke. And I am confused. I thought, what is this? And then Birdie sent me something today, and I was like, oh, that's what this is. Okay. I believe this now.
Yes. And Sherlock Rome's, I forget his original username on TikTok. Does anybody remember if you're from the OG Hive in TikTok? Because Sherlock Rome's, was it Krabby Abby, I believe? Do you remember that name, Sammy?
Yes, I do.
So I believe that that's his YouTube username, or maybe he switched both. But that dude, his brain is one of those brains where it's like you hear him start off saying something, probably similar to how a lot of our friends feel when we're talking to them. But he does it even in a way where it's like, it's impressive. It's like, dude, you just said something and it's like, hang on, you're going to now piece it together. And I'm going to get into what it is that he said and alleged. And I did some digging to see if I could verify it or if that might be what it is. I'll let you guys be the judge. Here's what I'm going to say, though, before we get into it. And Sammy, I think you'll echo this. Everybody is going to be in this. I told you so. I told you so. You guys are wrong. Shame on you. How dare you question it? This all, in my mind, the only reason why I'm questioning it is it feels too easy. It feels not real.
Well, it feels out of nowhere. And
yes,
if the prosecution, in my opinion, wanted to give this deal, or Brian wanted to take this deal, why are we voir direing experts? Why are we going to Pennsylvania to subpoena people? Why are we bringing all of these motions pro or against one or the other? Why are we having all these preliminary hearings? Why are we wasting the taxpayers' dollar up until the 11th hour, like a fight to the death, until this moment something happened?
Yes. And I think
something happened. And it's not because the third party culprit defense got denied. The defense at this point is used to having motions denied. They knew they had an ace up their sleeve.
Yep. I agree.
They knew it. And the prosecution knew they have a weak case. And they have a lot of holes. Did you hear Bill Thompson today? Jesus Christ. It was worse than John O'Keefe's sweatshirt that the goddamn criminalists were cutting holes into. It's just hole. Like I'm.
Yes.
So with that said, there has to be something that happened.
Well, Sammy, we might get into that tonight. And let me clarify. When I say this doesn't feel real, I'm saying it doesn't feel real that they just went through all of that and then overnight I'm going to take a plea deal. I'm just going to go in there. I'm going to say yes.
He
Doesn't have to say his motive. He doesn't have to speak. He got to say 12 words and it's over with. I mean, for God's sakes, there's times where Ann Taylor and him are smiling at each other.
If Bill Thompson had them in such a vice grip, right? Why would you allow him to plead? Oh, I'm frozen. I'm sorry. Why would you allow him to plead out without explaining himself? If you're doing him that kindness of, first of all, I don't like when people leverage the death penalty in general. But if you have that card to play, why wouldn't you play it to your fullest? Why would you leave the family in the lurch of knowing anything? And why would you continue the gag order?
Exactly. And so what I'm going to get into tonight is a theory, everybody. This is a theory. So before everybody jumps down Sammy and I's neck here, understand this is a theory. This isn't for everybody. If you believe that he's guilty and you believe that the news is telling you the truth and that the prosecution has this damning case and that Kohberger was 100% involved in some way, shape, or form, meaning as a criminal, like criminally involved, then this might not be the stream for you. But if you have an open mind and you just like to think about shit and how it could have happened, buckle up, because I think that Sherlock Holmes absolutely might be onto something. And, you know, the way that it was titled is the fake plea deal is really a witness extraction protocol. A witness might have been murdered. His family was threatened, being Brian's. The court knew, the legal teams knew, and the Fed stepped in. Who has ever seen anybody in a situation like today at any given point look at their client this way, guys?
On top of it, Ann Taylor is not, as a public defender, going to say in open court, Your Honor, my client is innocent. That's not what defense attorneys do. Even like you're pleading for somebody to be innocent, but that basically means not guilty, meaning we're going to find enough holes in this that will set you free, even though I know you did this, right?
Yep.
That's a lot of what defense attorneys do. Ann Taylor stood up in open court and said, Your Honor, my client is innocent. Brian is innocent. That is going out on a limb. That's open court. And she's after saying that, she's smiling now that he pleaded to all this and he's going to get life in prison. Like, my reputation's sullied and bye. Enjoy prison. I don't think so.
Now, Sammy, you read this. You said, like, again, I'm just logically bridge building. I'm going to read what Sherlock Holmes put together, and then I have a next slide that tries to piece it together to where it might hold some weight. And I'll let you guys be the judge for it. So Sherlock Holmes, formerly known as Krabby Abbey, he goes, and this is 5 hours ago from when I made these slides. So obviously this is recent. This is posted today, everybody. He says, I admit I was wrong. Brian himself did indeed approach the state with a request that led to this plea deal, but he wasn't asking for a plea deal. He asked them for admission into the witness protection program. I will explain. The reason he asked for it is because he is afraid they're going to murder him in prison. You see, Brian and Ann had arranged with the court a star alibi witness for Brian. This witness was a local Coeur d'Alene resident with ties to the firefighter community. Not only was this witness registered as a sealed, protected defense witness on the court docket, but everyone in the courtroom knows who he is and that he was subpoenaed. Wait till you see the next slide. He was subpoenaed to testify for Brian's alibi. He was going to exonerate Brian with irrefutable alibi evidence. but he also had successfully FOIA requested a bunch of Coeur d'Alene footage from EMT body cams from November 12th and 13th, 2022. Hive, what did I show you guys over the last two streams in regards to this fire that's going on out there?
And
I pointed to exactly that.
even before, like, Birdie and I were saying to each other when the firefighting shooting and police shooting happened in Coeur d'Alene, we were texting each other and I said, something feels off. Like, something feels wrong. And I was even making TikToks about this. Like, why does this feel so off? Why does this give me Matthew Crooks vibes? It was very odd. And then all of a sudden, out of that comes down the news. We're getting a guilty plea out of nowhere, even though there was stuff on the docket and things were really rolling.
Exactly. And if you listen to what Sherlock continues to say, he said by June 18th, hearing for motion of continuance, the entire court staff knew Brian would be exonerated by this witness. On June 18th, the defense team was running full sprint towards trial. Nothing in their way, no looking back. Then, a few days later, this very witness was murdered in an incident at a Coeur d'Alene firehouse in a purported sniper attack. There are also sourced whistleblower reports that Brian had received death threats to his life already by this point, and that a family member of his was also murdered in similar fashion the same week to send a message that the threat was real and credible. And so by June 20th, Brian immediately begged the state, not for a plea deal, but to place him in witness protection. So the powers that be decided to coordinate a fake story about the firehouse sniper incident, coordinate with the media to maintain Brian's cover story as the guilty guy for the Idaho 4 crimes, play a fake story about a plea deal so they can get Brian into witness protection ASAP. That's why the plea deal makes no sense given the facts of the case. That's why the firehouse sniper story also makes no sense and is full of continuity holes. And that's why this all feels confusing and like it was sprung on us out of nowhere. A fake plea deal, guilt, or narrative is the perfect way to stop all court proceedings and get Brian into WITSEC ASAP. Poor guy, he may get Epstein in his cell anyways. He's horrified he's going to be killed and knows this fake plea hearing is the fastest way to get into witness protection. But he was so close to exonerating himself. He was so close. He had the perfect alibi witness ready to testify, and that person is now deceased by sniper bullets at the firehouse in Coeur d'Alene. Judge Hippler knows the defense witness was murdered. There is court paperwork and subpoena about his schedule to testify. Judge Hippler's clerk knows who it is. The prosecutors know this is true and who he was. Ann Taylor and defense team all knew him. This will all come out and be confirmed in time. There is simply too much of a paper trail and too many people who know the sad truth here. You're welcome. I continue on to this page. Does everybody remember seeing the sheriff's return, the criminal that was sealed? Well, this was filed on June 27th, 2025, right when the theory alleges an alibi witness was about to testify, the witness was subpoenaed, and then just killed in the sniper incidents days later. This sealing makes perfect sense if this sheriff's return was confirmation of service to that now deceased witness. Because in a criminal court procedure, a sheriff's return typically refers to a formal document that confirms service of a subpoena, summons, arrest warrant, or witness order delivered by the sheriff's or law enforcement agency. In other words, someone was served or a court action was executed, and the sheriff returned proof of that to the court. A sheriff's return, and in addition, sheriff's return filings are rarely sealed unless the document involves a protected witness or informant, it contains personally identifying information that could endanger someone, the recipient of the subpoena or service is involved in an active secret proceeding, or the court is complying with a protective order or federal agency coordination.
I think they got so spooked after this fire incident. They literally threw this together. Like, just when Judge Hippler, think about how tense Judge Hippler was when he started this proceeding. And what was the first thing out of his mouth? I appreciate him saying, I don't let the public influence my decisions. That was important. And I think that's good to say, okay? I think it's important to say that because I don't like judges that use things like protesting and calls. He's not your congressman, people. He's your fucking judge. His job is not to take in the public opinion. His job is to apply the law and listen to the recommendations and judge accordingly. Okay,
Right.
that's it. So I do appreciate him saying that, but his demeanor was something I haven't seen before.
No.
Where it was edgy. He was on edge and he was worried about safety. A lot of safety kept coming up in this hearing, like
Those
conversations
seen,
about
the security seen and not seen. And I really quick just want to address this before the chat moves too much about how there's no verified evidence supporting the claims. If you were going into WITSEC, would you want there to be verified evidence of that? Guys,
No.
I'm not trying to sound like a nut job here. You can call me one. I don't care.
Yeah, like
That
we don't
makes
care
sense,
whatsoever.
That
Like,
makes sense that you're not
and
going to know.
we're not saying like this is true or not true, but I find this more likely and more sensible than whatever the F we just saw this week out of nowhere.
And does this picture make more sense then?
Yeah. Does this picture does this look like somebody who's thrilled her client's going to prison for the rest of her life, or somebody who knows that you're finally getting the protection you deserve? And yes, it's possible for somebody who has pleaded guilty to a crime to enter federal witness security program known as WITSEC. It often happens.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize this.
Right. And Devil's Advocates was there. He was third in line. He left his house at 3 a.m. this morning. And he got there. He actually got interviewed by AP News, which is kind of cool.
Out of here.
Yeah. He said, without, I guess, divulging the full text to sum it up, he said there's like something in the air right now, even chatter amongst just people there, journalists, bystanders, like something is about, like something just doesn't feel right. Something, I forget how he described it, but
do you remember by the way, just to cut in, because somebody in the chat said, do you remember W.S. Kim mom mentioned something about a firefighter? Well, I remember reading Dylan's interview who said it looked like a firefighter. Remember? She said it looked like... Go ahead. Sorry. Something about a firefighter. W.S.U. Kim said that. And in Dylan's interview, she said it looked like somebody like a firefighter. Remember?
Yep.
That's interesting. Good callback, chat. Good callback.
Yeah. And my question then, see, this is where it's like, I said this on the stream last night or whenever Steve G went on News Nation, and he's like, no, he needs to be judged in front of his peers. Like, that's probably like the only thing that I've agreed with that he says is like not one man playing God. Now, the other thing with Dylan and the changing story and the leaked text with Steve G saying that Dylan seems like she's full of shit. Well, maybe Steve is left out of it because Dylan is being pressured to change her story about seeing a fireman because they're protecting this giant thing. And then Dylan goes and looks like this crazy person who's always changing her story. Maybe she's not, who knows?
Well, who knows? But I said in one of my TikToks I sent to you, I feel as if, and we discussed this in some lives prior, that Steve G was getting mouthy in the beginning, and he was banging up against that door of authority, and it didn't look, we were 2 seconds away from having another Karen Reed situation if Steve kept spouting off at the mouth and kept digging into things that he was digging into. He was getting too close. He was getting too loud. He was pissing off the people who were investigating this, and he had to be shut down quick, fast, and hard. But you don't want to piss him off. So what I think happened was they said, instead of really making him angry, let's bring him in. Let's make him feel like we're giving him information. Let's make him feel like he's a part of this. And then what happened? His tune changed. All of a sudden it's only one person. It's Koberger. It sounded like Nancy Grace every time you heard him speak. And it was like, where's this tune change coming from? Because he played nice, because he wanted this trial, because he wanted to see who else is involved. I want these holes closed up for me at trial. So I'm going to play along. I'm going to play nice. He felt like he was being kept in the loop, and he was made to look like a fool. And so now what do we have? We have old Steve G back, because I don't think he ever really left.
And again, take it for what it's worth. The leaked messages, he said, as long as we play nice in the media, they'll keep
That's
us in
right.
the loop.
Right. So that's what I'm saying is they played him. We said this. Remember on one of our lives, I go, I really feel like they said, well, how are we going to deal with this? Let's feed him some misinformation. He'll leak it. It'll make Brian look worse. Nobody's going to go after the parent of a victim. We approve of this. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Let him go on every news show.
I had texted you something earlier because I believe Steve G did end up in the courtroom, correct?
The old Steve G. Well, I love the old Steve G. I love the new old Kanye.
I miss the old Kanye.
I miss the old Kanye.
Yeah. So, I mean, if Steve G wouldn't have gone in, did he go in or not?
What?
Did Steve G go into the courtroom?
I couldn't listen. First of all, that camera, it looked, the way it was filmed was so bizarre. It looked like somebody took their greasy thumbprint on it. Like it was an oddly filmed room. So I couldn't see very clearly because it looked a little blurry to me. Or like the camera's too far away for me to like really focus in on people's features, except for the prosecution table, the defense table, and Hippler. Other than that, I couldn't really see who was who. Yeah, blurry. I don't know why. Maybe I just have a shitty browser, but
no,
did anybody else feel like it was blurry, or am I just crazy?
No, it was at least on my end too, and I was watching it on my phone. I was in a work meeting, literally watching this trial under the table with the subtitles on, like.
Oh, trust me, I did.
Watching the hearing.
I had my headphones in, and when Bill Thompson said, we know when he was talking about Brian driving back to Pullman, and the reason he knows he took the back roads is because he's not on camera on the main roads. That's how we determined he took back roads, is because we didn't see him on camera on the main roads. So that means he must have taken the back roads. And I go, what the fuck? As loud as I possibly could. And my whole like team looked at me. They're like, and I go, oh, it's nothing. And I just type. I was like, what?
Well, let me say something. And I feel like quote unquote normies are going to probably have a field day with this one. Did anybody also think that Brian like just looked a little off?
Everybody looked a little off. Everybody looked a little rehearsed, stilted. It didn't look like this culmination of relief. Everybody looked off.
Again, you guys could take his word for it or not. Will texted me today at 11:50 or no, at 1:50. That did not look like Brian Koberger in that fucking courtroom. It kind of does, but something is off, which is just kind of odd. But
I was watching Twitter and somebody said, why is Brian shorter than his lawyer now and shorter than like this person and that?
Hold on.
Somebody posted a picture on Twitter and it's like literally he's shorter than Anne and like a few other people.
Well, here, I guess we'll just have to pull up.
This was a while ago, but I should have screenshotted it.
I mean, it could be the haircut. I mean, it's whatever. It's just.
You're pleading guilty. Time for a barber shop. Like what? Since when does the criminal justice system give a fuck if you have a haircut for court? I'm going to see if I can find the picture. But anyway, okay.
They're all grainy.
That's the other part is like, why was this so weirdly filmed? And then remember Hippler said, we're only having a photographer in here, but we're doing the live stream. But like I said, I'm not the only one. The live stream was bizarrely fuzzy.
And this isn't just a hair. Like my man is lined up right now. Like that's faded up. That's not like a jailhouse haircut. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Well, who
I don't know if you can leave. I don't know if you can bring in a barber for that shit. I have no idea.
I know. Do they do that at jail? I mean, I'm sure they do. I just actually, my fiance, so his family was in, I don't know how I should say this. I guess I could say this. Okay, so his uncle was in the Italian mafia like his whole life, and so he still has family members who are, I guess you could say, okay. Anyways, one of them went to
They're a
prison
bunch of like
recently.
made men.
Yeah, one of them went to prison recently, federal lockup. But then he got a compassionate release thanks to like some project because it was all he went to prison for. I think he got 10 years and it was for selling weed. And so there's an entire group that's now setting nonviolent offenders free if it has to do with the distribution of pot. I mean, he did it for like 30 years. He had like a huge field out in the sticks. But the point is that he said you could get anything you want in prison because I just saw him recently. He just got home and it was like so great to see him and stuff. And he's like, he was down in South Carolina in prison. And he said, we would have the gardeners bring us vodka, bury it in the garden. And I became in charge of like the garden and we would dig up the bottles of vodka and then like store it somewhere. I mean, like people can get anything they want in prison, anything they want.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I was watching some other creators' videos, and like, even if this was straight up, if you think about it, Brian Koberger didn't snitch. And if he didn't snitch on two powerful gangs in prison, being the cartel or the Aryan Brotherhood, you would think he'd be protected and would have nothing to worry about, right?
Right.
He didn't name anybody, or he only named people that were socially acquainted.
Well, the other part that's very strange too about this whole thing is, like I said, the prosecution, if they were the ones that held the cards, why wouldn't they force him to explain himself, or the deal's off the table and we're lining you up and shooting you to death? I mean, you care about the victims' families so much, give them an explanation. You have the cards, supposedly, correct? Or not?
Guys, this picture should just shock everybody.
Yeah.
Explain this to me.
It also looks like he hasn't slept. Look at that. Look at those dark circles. Poor honey.
Or he's got a parasite that causes dark circles too. Take some ivermectin.
I mean,
BK.
Oh, geez, that looks bad.
But like, I mean, what can I just ask you this?
Yeah.
What would there be in any way, shape, or form to smile about?
Nothing. Bill Thompson seemed odd. I mean, Bill Thompson wasn't aggressive. He's been aggressive up until this point, even when challenged, and made himself look like an idiot at so many points in preliminary hearings. He was boundless in his ego in some of these preliminary. And Ashley Jennings, I've never seen somebody respond so stupid in some hearings. It was actually shocking. She was an attorney at points. I was like, who the hell gave her a job? I swear to God. And yet somehow in this hearing, he was almost docile. It was odd. There was no venom and vigor when explaining these things.
He cried.
It sounded like, right. He cried.
I mean,
it feels, look at it. Look at these expressions. This doesn't.
Where's his eyebrows at too?
The whole thing just.
This guy?
Look, yeah.
This guy. Guys.
He looks like he could work at H&R Block. Like, can I give you my taxes for half off? Like, what?
Yeah. It's just like, this dude would get blown over by a fart in the wind. Seriously. Like, what are we talking about? You could say, oh, he's been in jail and all this and that. Does he look that different physically than he did in any photo you've seen of him? Here's the thing. Fine. Let's say he did it. Fine. I'll say,
yeah,
I will get off me or I'll take off my tinfoil hat and I'll say this. Brian Koberger did it. I would still look at this man and I would say, based on what they said and how he's the only one who took accountability for it, I would think most people could wonder, how does this dude do that? How does this dude
leave
do
nothing and leave no trace?
You could look at his wrist. You could
Where's
wrap
those
your entire
bushy
hand
eyebrows I've been hearing about?
I mean,
oh, come on. I just also too.
I'm sure that'll be the photo every news station uses.
Of course. Let's go with your theory. Like, let's go with this. Okay, he pled guilty. He said he did it. It is what it is. We were wrong. Like, let's just go with that. We're totally wrong. And up until this point, full steam ahead. Everybody seems to be, we're going to go to the arena. We're going to the court and we're having this long trial. Okay. Everything's going to come out and we're building to this. And all of a sudden this happens, right? And Ann Taylor shows no emotion.
She's happy
for the client that she's been vigorously defending and claiming is innocent in open court regularly, that she's been busting her tail, combing through pieces of evidence, discovery, compelled to discover motion after motion, expert after expert, Cy Ray, Bika Barlow. I mean, what for what? Just like for what? What was she building so hard for if she thought he was guilty? To just sit there calmly with no emotion as the client she's worked with for close to 3 years is getting sentenced to life, no possibility of parole. Yes, yes, yes. Bye.
Yep. His plea deal just hit the repository too.
What?
So his plea deal just hit the repository.
Oh, let's read it.
All right.
Hold on. The state of Idaho, by and through the Latah County Prosecuting Attorney Office, the defendant, Brian C. Koberger, and the defense attorney, Ann Taylor, stipulate to the following plea agreement. The plea agreement. The defendant will enter pleas to the following counts.
Enter
Burglar.
guilty pleas.
Guilty pleas to the following counts. Burglary, which I hated that always because he never took anything. You know who stole something? The cops who never gave Ethan his golf clubs back. Where did those bag of Payless shoes end up? Idaho Code 1840, 1401, 1403, a felony in count 1, murder in the first degree. Idaho Code 18-4001, 4002, 4003, 4004, a felony in count 2, murder in the first degree. Idaho Code blah, 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 a felony in count 3, murder in the first degree. Idaho blah, 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 a felony count 4, and murder in the first degree. Idaho count blah, 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 a felony in count 5 is stated in the indictment. The defendant, can you scroll up a little for me?
Yep.
The defendant will be sentenced to 10 years fixed for count 1. So 10 years for burglarizing and taking nothing?
The whole premeditation and the malice forefront, I believe is the term that they used.
We're getting 10 years for burglary, man, I should have been doing life when I was younger.
Yeah, no. Well, we did hear those stories. Yes. You'd be still locked up.
Macy's has got to charge me for life in prison for ripping off. All right.
So he's also going to receive fixed consecutive life sentences. Yeah. The state may seek restitution. This is pretty much what Hippler read.
Yeah. And he read it with no emotion. I was waiting for him to say, you know what I was also waiting for him to say? Something about did you have an accomplice or did you act alone? Are you sure? Did you have an accomplice? I was thinking if this is for real, he's going to press him on these issues, or maybe the parts where Bill Thompson gave his reasoning, like, oh, we feel as if during the investigation, he must have taken the back roads because we couldn't see him on camera going down the main roads. I thought maybe the judge will ask something like, did you take those back roads? What roads did you take? Like something did, like I thought he was going to pick in on the things that the prosecutors couldn't prove because they didn't have enough evidence. I thought, okay, maybe at least if this is for real, the judge is going to get up here, listen to the state's reasoning where they basically just regurgitate, regurgitated the PCA, but no,
they said it was new too. They said it was going to be new stuff.
There was nothing new. The only thing new we heard now is that there was 23 times that he prior visited the area, which, by the way, even Thompson had to concede that it encompasses a large area because that cell tower is in an area where it's populated mostly by college students, encompasses a large radius. So he even said that. And then also had to admit there was never a time where we could connect the phone directly in 1122. So I thought, okay, Bill Thompson's saying all of this. I think if this is serious, Hitler's going to press Brian on these holes to see if he could fill them for the families, for the case, for the public. Nothing. No holes filled.
And Diddy got off with a slap on the wrist.
Well, I expected that actually because number one,
thank you.
If
Sharon.
you wanted to chart, I made a TikTok about this. I said, everybody's shocked. I'm not because money can buy the best defense, but because the feds tried to stretch what the RICO statute could be. And it's not typically used for cases like this. So they kind of molded a case in a way for RICO, which technically, I guess you could say, but it's and sex trafficking. But they built their case around some not credible witnesses, which leaves reasonable doubt. You give more than not credible witnesses. Some are sympathetic, but even the sympathetic ones had text messages saying, I can't wait to freak off. Okay. Not saying he's not a monster. He is full-blown fucking psycho, okay? He's a wacko, he's a freak, and he's an abuser. But they couldn't get him on domestic abuse charges, and assault because of the statute of limitations, and he paid for that video to be hidden, okay? The witnesses that they paraded out all have a little bit of seedy culpability. They liked their vacations. They liked their apartments. They liked their cars. They liked their swag. And it's a hate-love relationship on and off for a plethora of years. Not saying it's right, but, nobody forced you to eat all those drugs and have all those purses. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm not forgiving it, but what they were trying to charge him with by stretching that RICO statute and sex trafficking statute, I just didn't see it. I was like, the jury's going to say there's too much reasonable doubt here because a lot of these witnesses' stories changed.
Right.
They had variations of every story. The other thing is if they really wanted to nail Diddy, they should have went for TriStar Entertainment. Go for the accountant. Go for Lou Taylor. Bring up that Britney connection and all the celebrities he taped. But what did they pull? Maureen Comey, whose father is James Comey. They did exactly what they did in the Epstein case, like with Bill Barr. They basically just said, we're going to tamp down on the money aspect of your business. We'll just make it extra scandalous, like with the sex and tawdry shit.
Yes. Okay. So somebody also said his bail was denied, but I wanted to get back. I just put this into ChatGPT to see is this plea a death sentence or is there any legal route out of it? It says no, not formally, but yes, in practical terms, this is a de facto death sentence. No death penalty is explicitly mentioned, so it's off the table. Waives all rights, no appeals, no motions, no Idaho Rule 35 sentence reduction. He cannot challenge any aspect of the case, past, present, or future. He waives all defenses, including constitutional ones.
And Anne was fighting for that tooth and nail. And all of a sudden she just said, okay, shrug, smile, yay.
So he's got
this doesn't ring true.
Right. See, guys, I'm telling you, this starts to line up and make a hell of a lot more sense when you look at that. What defense attorney would do that, would accept it?
When you showed me that, I said, thank you for sending me this, because this rings so much more. They already had a problem, because I think the whole reason why these kids were unalived is because of they couldn't protect them and they screwed up. They had cops sitting outside the residence, guys. What, you think they were just doing alcohol checks? No, they weren't. And they screwed up and they didn't protect those kids. And now you have a firefighter who was most likely going to be some sort of subpoenaed witness for Brian and exonerate him. And now you have a mass fire and sniper and multiple gunfires and a Matthew Crooks like Patsy laying against a tree with a gun that doesn't match the bullets at the scene in the forest.
And Sheriff Norris said it was unclear how the suspect had died. His body was moved quickly from where it was found because of rapidly spreading fire. Goes on to say, because of the encroaching fire, authorities had to scoop the body up. The scene was compromised as a result. Guys, pull your heads out of the sand if you can't see what's going on here.
And on top, what does that sound like? Remember the next day when Matthew Crooks, they were hosing down the roof. They weren't taking trajectories and doing it was like John O'Keefe on the roof. That's what they were doing. They were getting rid of it. So we don't know what really happened. What really happened to Matthew Crooks? This is the same situation. If the fire was burning from 3:15 on and they were so worried and they came upon the body, they were worried he was going to be burned, it would have been burned already.
Well, and then where is this one? Oh, I thought I had it. Somebody sent me yesterday. Here, I can pull it up quick. Somebody sent me yesterday. Look at this too with the fire, Sammy. This is super interesting.
Oh, and by the way, before you pull this up, fires, what did Allie Carter say? Allie Carter is the child who was sex trafficked to all these celebrity elite parties. She speaks out about it. Do you know who she is? She's that Black girl who speaks out about being a foster child who was she was sold from her by her mother, and then she was sex trafficked to all these parties and MK Ultra and stuff like that. She speaks out, goes to court, makes a bunch of TikToks, scared for her life, but she still continues to speak out. What did she say before the big LA fires? She said, when Diddy was arrested, because this is what it was really about that they're covering up. When Diddy was arrested, she goes, watch out for the fires because they're going to burn down the city before they turn over what's really going on underground in the city. They're going to burn it to the ground. And guess what happened? They burned the goddamn city to the ground. And I think that's an MO almost. Like when I see this, I go, oh, just like Allie Carter said. Pay attention to the fires. Yeah. Look at Maui.
Am I back?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I don't know. Sorry, guys. So somebody in our Hive said, as a former wildland firefighter and Forest Service employee, this is very odd. Day 3 of a relatively small fire. They have 0% containment. The fire went from 15 to 20 acres, now to 38. Yes, fires can grow, and sometimes getting containment under control can take several days, but 0%, it's almost like they want the area to burn, get rid of evidence. Here's a text from my biological dad, 20-year Cal Fire hotshot, wildland firefighter. He's not buying it either. You can see this.
Oh no, you're dying. What's going on? Guys, is Birdie frozen for you?
I don't know.
Well?
My stupid air conditioning. I should be back. The freaking air conditioning pisses me off in this place. I don't know how when air turns on, it short circuits everything else in the house.
You must have like bad wiring, or like it must take too much. Wait, what state do you live in?
Wisconsin.
You live in Wisconsin.
Yes.
Do they have energy
letting
problems?
Everybody know, Sammy.
Oh,
I don't know
sorry.
if they have energy problems. But anyways, I was just going to say the estimated size is 38 acres, 0% down here in the
0% containment for a brush
in
fire.
A3.
Okay. Is it, wait, Idaho's not even that dry of a state.
Well, it's odd. And again, I don't want to get too tinfoil hat-ish, but I will.
The other thing that Bill Thompson said that drove me crazy was when he changed his plates over. And I was like, you motherless F. You know he changed his plates over because he got pulled over in that August stop that you mentioned where the cop said, you have to do it by this date. And so he knew this is the last week that I have before I get in trouble.
Yep. I agree. And the thing that I want to continue to point out is why is it that in everything surrounding this case, it's a picture of a picture? I don't understand it. You can see a cell phone here. Okay, you obviously got the phone there. It's like, this is what they're doing. They're releasing this shit, Dateline, whatever.
Know.
It's just odd. And I put it into, I've said this on the stream before. It's just, this is crazy. I put it into a GAN or like a forensic facial analysis.
I watched,
yeah. Crazy.
I watched your live and Rick and I were watching your live. Before you even were explaining this, he goes, is that like a realistic drawing? And I said, you think it looks fake? He goes, that's not a real picture. And I go, I know.
It's actually a realistic image that was created through a text-based prompt or by modifying existing images. What's so crazy to me is so it's like, do you guys so I did some research on like what does generative adversarial networks mean? You know, when you create your like snap bitmoji or like your character, that's what it is, but with real faces.
I was going to say that, remember when you were a kid, like, I don't know, like I played a lot of Nintendo 64 and you get to pick your character. Like, imagine if it's GoldenEye comes out, we're doing the game over again in 2025, and now we get to pick our realistic characters. That's what this would look like. Instead of like Odd Job and Natalia that looks all blurry and shitty, the graphics would be that spectacular now in 2025.
It could be relevant. Here's what I think we should discuss, Sammy.
Yes.
Is it worth continuing to dive into Banfield footage, Linda Lane footage, 911 call, and court documents at this point? Because in my head, I do not believe that any of that matters anymore.
Well, I am going to say that one thing that bothers me the most about the Banfield is when I change the settings and it looks like a ritual in robes is going on in the bushes, which I've filmed. And then you look at the Sigma Chi ritual thing and it looks like those robes. That freaks me the fuck out. Like, what was going on there? And why were and then you get them running in the background. Like, there's too much that's unanswered. But what are we supposed to do about it? We're never going to know either way. Like, that's the thing that's frustrating, is that we're just left with this absence of information. And Bill Thompson seems to be fine with that. Like, I was thinking, Bill, aren't you a little concerned that you had a weak case? Listen to what he had to say. We should play what he had to say, Bertie.
Bill Thompson?
Yeah, I want to have our audience just let's listen to this and point out how weak of a case this is. Even if Ann Taylor lost on every motion when it came to the third party culprit or lost on the Franks hearing, there's so much reasonable goddamn doubt.
Yep. I'm pulling it up.
And Bill knows that. So that's why I don't believe this. But what are we supposed to do?
I don't know. Where's the full stream
of the hearing?
I got it here.
Oh, okay.
If the defendant does not appeal the sentence, guilty. Meditation and morning hour or late evening hours, lawfully, deliberately.
Okay, here we go.
And malice.
And
let's listen to this.
Well, Birdie, what I want to like point out something, I'm going to hold up my finger and you do the same. Or my pencil. I'll hold up my pencil. Like, so
If I'm not looking, or if I don't see it, just say, stop it.
I don't want to scream at you.
State at this time to provide its recitation of its factual basis had this case gone to trial.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the organization of the recitation is different than what I think the court and the public may be familiar with from the probable cause affidavit and other documents. The
No,
state's
it's not.
evidence, as an overview, would show that back in March of 2022, when the defendant was residing at his parents' residence or was residing back in Pennsylvania, his home state, he purchased online a K-bar knife and sheath with an Amazon gift card that he had purchased shortly prior to the purchase of the knife, sheath, and sharpener. Jumping ahead, the end of June of that year, the defendant, Mr. Koberger, moved from Pennsylvania to Pullman, Washington, which is right across the state line from Moscow, Idaho, for the purpose of pursuing a PhD in criminal justice at Washington State University. The state's evidence would indicate that beginning July 9th of 2022, Mr. Koberger's phone began connecting.
Okay. This also reminds me, I want to try to get an interview, if we can, with that professor who gave an interview to News Nation, who was going to be a witness, I believe. She was his professor at DeSales University, and she gave an interview. I think it was with Brian Enton I watched today. We should go over that maybe next week, or I don't even care if we do it today. Basically, she said she didn't notice anything odd about Brian whatsoever. Like nothing at all about him as a student and a part of her program. And he took multiple classes with her, including like forensic psychology. I mean, a gambit of classes with her. She was like his mentor, and she wants to try to talk to him because she's upset with herself for missing the signs that he was a serial killer, because she actually wrote a book regarding serial killers' psychology and how you can pick it out and how you'll know that this person is exhibiting these signs and what are the red flags for this sort of psychotic serial killer behavior. So she's upset with herself for missing them, and she wants to learn from it. So she's hoping and trying to sit down with Brian and talk to him because she feels like he'll trust her. But if she missed it and this is her calling, maybe you missed it because he didn't do it. Exactly. Maybe you were right.
Yep.
Connecting to a cell tower.
And Sammy, remind me after we listen to this, Phoenix was pointing something out about how, like, apparently Hitler didn't say, how do you plea? Guilty or not guilty? He just said yes or no.
Huh.
I don't know if that matters.
I think he said you're going to be pleading guilty to these charges. So you don't have to, I mean, it's already in the agreement. So you're not going to enter, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's
area of
the
the 1122 King Road residence in Moscow, Idaho. Now, I will acknowledge for the court and all present that there are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants. Between July 9th of 2022 and November 7th, the defendant's phone connected to that particular tower during late night, early morning hours, 10 p.m. to 4 a.m., on approximately 23 times. Now, I will acknowledge also, we do not.
So he acknowledges this encompasses a large, densely populated area. So from July 9th, November 7th, so July, August, September, October, November. So for 4 months in a densely populated area where he lives right outside of it, and he goes shopping there and he does things there. He went there 23 times, possibly got pinged in the area from 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. in 4 months, 23 times. Who knows for what? Drugs, shopping, eating. He doesn't know what he was doing there. That's the thing that, so what were you doing there, Mr. Koberger, for 23 times? And by the way, he said it stopped on the 7th.
Yeah.
So
I have a theory that I'm working on that's a little bit outside of the box, and people could say, well, that's all you do. Okay, fine. Then I have a different one. But it has a lot to do with why would he be around the house? And it has a lot to do with the funding of the predictive criminal behavior, and specifically what it is that he would be doing, because I find it odd that they make it such a point to tell everybody that his phone was turned off for this certain duration, which isn't it interesting that they have him for every single time? And let's be honest, phones don't turn off 100% at all nowadays. They can be off on the side button, but there is still shit that you could track on a phone, and you could dial it to. You could ask any single person in the FBI. You can go look that up. Your phone might be turned off the power, but the phone can still be located, right? So if he's doing some sort of surveillance study, or if he's involved in that, who knows if the informant, which as Steve G mentions, they can't pursue that lead. Who knows if the informant wasn't also working with BK on that and was leaving digital breadcrumbs to do this? Who knows?
also,
but I have a whole overlay that I'm going to be putting together of it.
If he was studying like forensic psychology, there is a lot of criminality in these frats, and they were getting in trouble for hazing. What if Brian was like, I want to study this sociology of like these college kids who, okay, one died last year mysteriously in a drowning in 2 inches of water. Like maybe he was having these former frat kids participate or something. We don't know. Like if he was interested in psychology, maybe he was running his own sort of forensic psychology of people. You know, you don't know. Like, but I agree with you with what you were saying.
Yeah, I just on its face,
also,
it's too simple to just be a homicide.
Somebody wrote this comment on Twitter. It said, that's one of the early issues that got me interested in the Brian Koberger case that turned into a pretty insane situation. The FBI agent certainly used a backdoor to narrowly tailor his requests more effectively. The defense expert for Ann Taylor was like, wait a second, I'm looking at all of my secret backdoors too, and I see something wholly exonerating and will end the case. The only issue is he can't talk about the backdoor or share documents from it. He can only use it to confirm things. So Hippler denies his right to speak at the preliminary hearing. He tells the defense attorney, and she files a motion for discovery. There are up to 28 motions to produce this discovery for the same few items. And the state prosecutor says, I don't know what you're talking about. That doesn't exist. That's the historical records, which again, they're still pretending that you can't get them, which you can. Her expert worked for the same agency as Nicholas Balance, and the historical data for AT&T does go back several years. It even says it in the own FBI manual where they have a liaison that they do this work with. That's way better than pings, than cell phone pings. And even now, Bill Thompson's acknowledging that this isn't that direct of an effort. This isn't that big of a deal, essentially.
Yeah. Let's just continue to listen to this, because let's just get through this. I want to continue to rehear this, because I only heard this live. I haven't went back and rewatched it.
Have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122, but we can't put his phone in that area on those times.
Oh, great.
In the interim, on August 22nd of 2022, Lake Tahoe County Sheriff.
Here's what I was thinking when I watched it. 10 seconds, real quick. If you put yourself in Brian Koberger's shoes, would you ever accept this? Just think about this. You're about to go away for life. Would you accept this? Well, there's lots of college towns in the area, and we could only ever put him near the scene. I'd be like,
not only that, but he's saying we've only ever had his cell phone ping in this densely populated large area with plenty of people, like amidst this area, not even directly in it, and not directly with these people who were murdered.
Yes.
And you're going to say, you know, you've done a great job, Anne. We fought so hard, tooth and nail, motion after motion, all this time. But we're just going to let this crappy of a weak case just bury us. We're just going to say we did it.
Literally just said we have no evidence he was in the home.
I know. Isn't it crazy? This is crazy.
Deputy Darren Duke conducted a traffic stop in the early morning hour or late evening hours, about 11 p.m. On the west side of Moscow, on the Moscow-Pullman Road. This was a traffic stop of Mr. Koberger's car.
Okay, Judge Hippler, Judge Hippler, this is your time to say, okay, Mr. Koberger, on August 2nd of 2022, when Officer Duke pulled you over around 11 p.m. on the west side of Moscow and Pullman and blah, 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 who were you there to see? What were you doing there at that time? What was your purpose to be over there? Like, give me something.
I still just, guys, I don't know how to describe it. I think we are looking at shit that isn't supposed to make sense. And like somebody just said, I would never take a plea deal if I didn't do it. Okay.
Look at Hitler's face.
Yeah.
Look at his face.
Thank you, Coffee Fueled. The super chats, you guys rock for that. And I appreciate that. Like I said, I'll never ask anybody for money. So if anybody says that I am, or it's not me, I don't have any crypto coins either, which is weird that I got asked about that. But
do you think Bill Thompson was crying because somebody said, I think he got emotional. I don't know what he said. Do you think he was crying because he realized he like literally got more witnesses murdered because of his prolonging this bullshit?
Well, and that's a good segue back to the point I was making. And I saw Carol in the chat was like, stay focused. You guys are all over. I know we are all over, but a lot going through my head right now. And where I was going to go with that, Sammy, to your point is it's like we're looking into things that don't make sense. They know it doesn't make sense. That's why we're so confused. We're like kind of gaslighting ourselves into being like, they're not even saying he's in the house. Would you ever accept this plea deal? No, nobody. I don't think anybody would. There's a different situation maybe to taking a plea deal and giving a false confession to get the death penalty or a long sentence off the table. This, to me, people are going, well, I wouldn't admit to it. You got the U.S. Marshals there. This, to me, seems like they are rushing to get through this because of the fire and the sniping thing. That can't not be related.
I feel this so much in my soul. I'm going to pray on this. I'm going to pray for like one of my clarity dreams, like that I have sometimes. And I'm like, I just feel it in my gut. Like when we heard about that fire, I was in the shooting. I go in the plea deal. It just feels like this can't be not. I just feel like it's connected, just like Sherlock Holmes or whatever said.
Yes, there's no way. Like this has been my overarching point, Sammy, and I think a lot of people in the Hive is that if this was a weirdo serial killing obsessed loner that bought a knife off of Amazon and was stalking the victims, circling their house, phone data, all this shit. Okay. DNA on the thing, there'd be no redactions. It would be an open and closed case. It wouldn't be national security to protect the people not named in the case. Leaked messages of Steve G talking about informants, the ceilings, all of this shit. It wouldn't be happening that way.
Literally threatening Steve in the beginning. Threatening the parent to back the F off. Going and having one of Ann Taylor's witnesses get approached by the FBI for what she said in a preliminary hearing. Guys, remember that? She was so nervous. She was like,
and Sammy, let's go back to Sherlock Holmes, not to keep going there. When have you ever seen local law enforcement move victims and survivors' items out of a house? The Cowboys are on scene.
Mm-hmm.
North American Relocation Services holds a Title 48 or some Schedule 48, which allows them to move protected federal assets and personnel. There's no photos of the bodies. There's no crime scene photos.
They destroyed the house.
They destroyed
They
Guys,
buried the house.
we're
And
watching.
we had who? President Green become responsible for it. Why is he involved? It was an off-campus housing. He kept saying that. It's off campus. Well, then why do you give a fuck?
So it just feels like a story. It feels like a story, and it's not.
Well, it feels like a rushed ending. Like they forgot to write, like it's the end of Gossip Girl. Like, oh crap, we forgot to figure out who's going to be Gossip Girl. Let's just make it Dan. Okay, BK, you're Gossip Girl. We forgot. Okay, does that ending sound good, everybody? Everybody happy?
Yes. And the thing that I think bothers me the most, as far as like, not that we're here trying to, we're not trying to convince anybody. We're not. We're looking through it. We're interpreting it how our brains interpret it. But the thing that I just cannot, I don't know how to like answer or combat this question is, well, where's the proof that they would be moved into WITSEC? Where's the proof that they're confidential?
They wouldn't have
They
it.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
They wouldn't.
Unless you're a moron like Henry Hill, who can't keep his mouth shut, or what's his face? Who's the mobster guy who got arrested for dealing E in Arizona, and then his daughter did that she did the Mob Wives show. John Gotti's second guy, Sammy the Bull Gravano.
Oh,
like,
yeah,
unless
Sammy.
you're that dumb, I mean, he's a nice guy and everything, but Jesus, shut the fuck up.
I mean, guys, Devil's Advocates came on here a couple months ago, and he talked about how the FBI let an informant stay in the mob, commit murders, would help frame other people so that he could stay in the mob, continuing to build the case. That is on record. That is fact.
Gravano killed multiple people and admitted to it and got to go live a nice life in Arizona. And then he continued to deal ecstasy.
I mean, if you go look at Joe Rogan just had some dude that infiltrated the mob through the FBI. He said they went as far as to find an orphanage that had burned down, gave him a fake social security number, gave him this, gave him all this identity, because if they asked him for like any trace of his parents, whatever, they had already thought through it. He's going to say, I'm an orphan. Okay, what orphanage? Well, they're going to look it up. Oh, it was burned down. There's no records. Like, guys, these operations, it's not like Sammy and I just, if we were in the FBI, Sammy, I'm not just going to call you and be like, hey, let's go undercover. Okay, it's planned out. There's millions of dollars put into this shit.
I know, and my swearing would totally give me away.
Or would help you. Like somebody, hey, Sammy, let's say like I'm in the mob and you're the informant, and I ask you, are you in the mob? What's your answer if you're an informant? I'm not in the fucking mob. Like
why? Why do you say that?
Yeah, you ask me. No, you're probably the informant. I think you'd be a great negotiator at like a black site in Afghanistan somewhere back in the day. I could see you doing that.
I like analyzing people's speech.
Yeah.
Let's go.
All right, here we go. Let's finish this BS out.
15 white Hyundai Elantra with Pennsylvania plates. During the course of the traffic stop, Deputy Duke was able to obtain Mr. Koberger's name, Brian Koberger, his phone number, and his address, which at that point was a apartment address in Pullman.
Whoa, I just realized this.
We then move to...
Well, then why were you putting out a BOLO for the 2011 to 2013 for so long? If you were on this guy and this is the guy, then why are you giving false Elantra makes and models, brah? Like, what are you doing? What if you knew back in August that Brian drove a 2015? You had his name, Brian Koberger. You had his phone number. You had his address. You had everything. So if you suspected all the way back then in the beginning of this, I want to know what these people were doing from November 13th to when they said they got Brian on December 19th. What were you doing that whole time? Because it seems like a whole lot of nothing until, or maybe you were. I don't know what you exactly did, but I would love that explanation. Bill, I'd love to know what you did from November 13th to December 19th, because I see nothing. And then now you're saying, oh, in August, he was pulled over. So we knew that matched the car we saw on the surveillance. Then why did you put out a bolo for the wrong year?
Because
Sorry.
yeah, that's fine. It's all great questions. And to add to the weirdness of questions, I just saw somebody say, check my email. Well, Wes Rowley's father's profile is now completely wiped.
The father?
Yes. And
Well,
DC,
I had that
this
pictures.
is crazy.
I had pictures of him with like the tattoos and stuff I sent you, like the
Yeah.
hands and stuff.
So you got to just.
We're wiping everything. If we're wiping, this is so much more likely.
Man.
The early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. The state's evidence would show that early morning hours on that day, Mr. Koberger's phone left his Pullman residence, which is an apartment in kind of the central northwest part of Pullman. That phone was then subsequently turned off at approximately 2:54 a.m. and remained off until
That echo, by the way,
It's
is
not
also,
our fault.
Yeah, it's their audio.
Okay, this is what I also love too. So Brian left his apartment at 2:54. That's funny because you guys said it was 2:47, but the network was still going till 2:54. So I'm glad he made that change. But if they would have let us go to trial, we would have realized, why did you say his network turned off way earlier from when he actually had his network turned off? That's because there's a fork in the road, and you could choose to go towards Moscow, or you could choose to go towards that park, Huawei Park. And I betcha if they didn't lie in the PCA, it would have showed his phone going towards the Huawei Park.
My head's spinning.
4:48 a.m. on Sunday, the 13th of November. The state's evidence would include a trial, video surveillance of a business on the Moscow-Pullman Highway, just across the state line from Moscow. It would show a vehicle matching the description of the defendant's Hyundai Elantra.
That's not
entering
saying that it's
Moscow
his
at
Hyundai
approximately
Elantra. So again, this is your evidence. That's matching the description. Matching the description. By the way, when this information got out, this is when you were still asking the public for 2011 to 2013. So the matching the description, according to you, because this is the same goddamn information, was looking for a 2011 to 2013. So how does that match the description? It has 6 spokes. What you were looking for didn't. So what is this?
Bullshit. That's literally what it is. I think this is a theater.
If it was good evidence, he would have said, we saw the defendant's car. But does he say that? No. He says, we saw a vehicle matching the description of the suspect's car. Okay, what was that description back then? Oh, it was the wrong year. Great.
Yeah. Wrong year.
Great.
2 a.m. Compiled surveillance that the investigators put together from businesses and residents then show the defendant's car, the white Elantra, as I've described, circling the 1122 King Road area, that neighborhood, starting around 3:30 or so in the morning.
3:30 or so.
Comes into the immediate.
Guys, we're talking about this man's about to go to prison for the rest of his life. And you could say, well, why would he admit it? Guys, the only reason this makes sense of why this is happening is to, fine, I'm going to go like 40,000 foot view here. The only reason why they would go forward with this is either to keep everybody distracted from really diving into it and saying, well, what about this? And what about that? What about this? Doesn't make any sense. Who's going to plead to it? And then you have the true crime community and everyone going, and it's like, we're getting nowhere. Almost like it was designed this way. We're all
Oh,
stonewalled.
100
We're never going to figure it out. They probably won't even unseal this shit. We're never going to have answers to these questions.
No, but we can, if we think of the theory that Sherlock, what's his name? Sherlock Gnome? Rome. Sorry. What is that, a movie, Sherlock Gnomes?
Sherlock Gnomes might be like
I
a
think it's a kid's
spin-off,
movie.
but I think it's
Yeah,
Sherlock Holmes.
I want to
Did
say it was
have
like
gnomes?
a Toy Story like movie. Does anybody remember that, or am I making that up? Was there a Sherlock Gnome movie? Okay.
That just reminded me of Step Brothers, where he's like, Pam. And he can't say the pan. He's like, it's like comb.
But when you're listening to this, oh yeah, around 3:30 or so, like, are you picking me up for coffee? What time are you coming to get me? I'll
No
be there
shit.
around 3:30 or so. This is not evidence of anything that would even remotely get you close to being locked up for prison in the rest of your life for a homicide. The businesses circling, we saw his vehicle possibly circling the neighborhood at 3:30 or so. I'm sorry. What?
Guys, after listening to this today, I don't see how there was any intent for this to be a legal strategy. We were speculating that it could be. I do not see this being a legal strategy.
Oh, I said it right away. It was an illegal strategy. I was
There's
going,
no way.
no. This isn't. Something happened. Something happened so severe that we were heading in a direction that was evident. We were going to the battle of the death. And Ann Taylor, in my opinion, even though she had losses, was confident that their case was weak and was ready to rock and roll with subpoenas and all.
For all we know, there is so much shit going on in this I-90 highway of trafficking and crime and gangs and whatever else is going on that maybe there's big operations about to take place. We're like, we need something to completely give us an umbrella cover over this entire area, because otherwise, if you start seeing this leader of the cartel went down, this leader of the gang went down, this person was arrested for trafficking, this person was arrested for this, people are gonna be like, what the hell is going on out in Idaho? But now this is all we're going to talk about. We're only going to talk about a single perpetrator.
We're
and
not
none
going
of
to
the other
talk about we're not going to talk about why 0% of a fire is out, or why there was so many shots fired in multiple directions, kind of like Butler, Pennsylvania, that we can't talk about. That got my channel nuked too. That was part of the reason.
Oh,
my
SH,
old one.
how they tore that down too.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. This makes way more sense that they want us focused on this. And the more absurd this keeps playing out, like just as we keep listening to Bill have no case, have the weakest case I've ever seen in my fucking life. Listen to this.
Yeah, I'm going to play it. I know people want me to play it, but what makes more sense? Brian Koberger did this and he just accepted the worst plea deal in history.
Wait, put this up. Zach said, if you all knew, I'm a 21-year-old fentanyl powder addict. First tried it at 13 and live an hour, I think he wanted to say, from Moscow in WA.
Zach, are you referring to just how bad it is?
Probably.
There's no murder weapon.
I know.
There's nothing.
Why would it if the prosecutor had all the balls and had all the cards, why aren't you asking what he did with the knife? Why isn't the judge saying, where's the weapon? What is this?
When did it become single source DNA too? I thought there was a bunch of other tested DNA on item 13.1.
Now he's going to say something, and I found this really interesting when we're going to play this. He said a male source, and I was like,
"Yep, I'm going to play
just one.
Yeah, just one singular one. I got to fill up my water. I'm going to let this play when I get back. I'll pause it right away, and you can go on.
Area of 1122 King Road, which is actually on a dead end, and then leave several times. And approximately 4:05 that morning, the defense car had entered that area, was leaving, stopped at the intersection of King and Queen Road, did a U-turn, and the state's evidence would show that the defendant's car came back and parked behind and
What's in his
above
car?
the 1122 King Road residence. The state believes that its evidence would then show that the defendant entered the residence of 1122 through the kitchen sliding door on the back side of the residence, which is the side of the residence.
How is that possible if those fucking
face
bar
the area
chairs
above where the
were up
defendant's
there?
car was parked.
Wait a minute.
Defendant entered the residence, went to the.
Do I need to pause it
Birdie.
or keep it going?
Birdie, how did he enter through the kitchen back slider if those bar chairs were parked right in the slider?
I'm sure there's a logical explanation just because like he had sat down and took a smoke break according to Dateline after committing these two. He probably barricaded everybody inside. There's probably a logical explanation, right?
Yeah, the bar stools were blocking the door.
It's crazy.
I can't. So he was circling the area several times. Then he makes the U-turn to Queen and King Road and park behind. Where's that on the Linda Lane footage? And where it was the green Elantra that's already been proven, the one that was circling around and around.
And Susan
Because
says
it had the
chairs,
crumpled license plate.
but you're right. And Susan said the chairs were put there by the cops. Well, I would say to
Why
this,
would they do that?
I would say, so that would be evidence. Why would they ever move the stools to
Wait.
block a door? And just like they're moving out the residents' shit, wouldn't they just put caution tape in front of it? Wouldn't they have somebody stand there instead? There wasn't a shortage of cops on scene.
So when a cop processes evidence, they decide it's a good idea not to take photographs and let's just throw a bar stool in front of a sliding glass door like some, shitty jerry-rigged white trash system. I mean, what is this? That doesn't make sense. If they did that, how is that? The chairs weren't there. The cops put them there because the lock handle was missing.
So wouldn't you just, again, whatever, if they
If
did
the
that,
if the lock handle was missing, didn't the parents, I know one came down to fix the locks, but if the lock handle was missing and they were there, why were the chairs there then?
or my thought is this, okay, we just had a quadruple homicide. Let's take bar stools, fold them, cross them. I'm not saying that they didn't do that in this case. If they did, that's great.
Did they dust those chairs for fingerprints first?
I'm just trying to say too, like, all right, fine. If they did that in this case, then they did that. But the bigger point I'm saying is like, there's not like a wood block that you can just put at the bottom half of the other door so it doesn't open up. You're going to just go take bar stools and fold them and just MacGyver them together and like.
Right. Why would you take something from the scene that could possibly have evidence on it? You don't know. You don't know. You found a single source of male DNA and blame this on one person. So if that's the logic that you're going with, that's enough DNA to make this make sense, then why would you not treat a bar stool the same as you're treating any other piece of evidence in this house that doesn't belong to you? Wouldn't you just get something that you have of your own? Hi, I'm a cop. I have a hairbrush in my car. I'll use my own instead of contaminating the scene of their shit. Sorry.
No, it's just crazy.
Third floor, and with a knife, killed Madison Mogan and Kayla Gonzalez.
Oh, he
The
cried when you
defendant,
said
as
her
he
name.
left that room for whatever reason, ended up leaving, or the sheath for a K-bar knife was left on the bed next to
K-bar
Madison
knife?
Mogan's body. And I can jump ahead. That sheath was tested by the Idaho State Police Forensic Lab, and single source male DNA was found on the snap of that sheath.
Oh,
As
was
well
it?
as blood from both Kaylee and Madison and other trace evidence. But it's important
Pause.
to note,
I like that Bill keeps jumping ahead. Like when he does this a bunch. We're going to jump ahead because you have nothing. So we're going to just skip to the parts that sound relatively believable. And then when he says, we found male single source DNA on the button. No, you didn't. You sent it to a bunch of different labs and didn't get anything. So where's that in this? If we're going to be honest, if this is the big truth of it all, he's pleading guilty. We're getting the truth. Can you handle the truth, guys? This is the moment where we're handling the truth and we're getting the truth. And he doesn't mention that, oh, it went to this lab, this lab. Oh, then we told them to stop working on it. And then we
Well, there's
sent
no
it to
chain
the
of
FBI.
custody. There's no chain of custody, and Taylor gets blindsided in court.
And the parents know this. They're up on this. They know what's happening in this case. This is a Cliff Notes version
Yeah.
of the bullshit investigation that was Idaho 4.
Yep.
Single source male DNA was on the snap of that sheath. The state's evidence would show that Xana Knodel, still awake at this time, in fact, had taken a DoorDash order not long before this started. Her room was not on the 3rd floor. It was on the 2nd floor on the west side. As the defendant was either coming down the stairs or leaving, he encountered Xana, and he ended up killing her, also with a large knife. Ethan Chapin, Xana's boyfriend, was asleep in their bedroom, in her bedroom, and the defendant killed him as well.
So again, here's what's interesting. So Ethan doesn't wake up at all.
He's in a coma, apparently.
With a large fixed blade knife. Each victim suffered multiple wounds. I will state for the record that there is no evidence there was any sexual component or sexual assault on any of the victims. I want to make that clear so there's no speculation.
Oh, do you want to know what's so funny about this speculation? Is that you said in the beginning, all of these people were sleeping in their bed. That's what you said. What happened to that? Everybody was sound asleep in their bed. Now Xana's getting a DoorDash order where, I don't know, did Dylan mention anything about Xana getting a DoorDash order? She heard some things, like Kaylee playing with the dog going up and down the stairs, but not other things. Like, ding dong, here's your fucking DoorDash. Nope, we didn't hear that. That the DoorDash driver happened to see Brian Koberger. She saw Brian Koberger parked next to her, apparently. She was supposed to testify, guys. This woman was supposed to testify that she saw him parked. Okay? If that were true, if that were even remotely true, she goes and drops off the DoorDash order to Xana, who picks it up and runs into him. So how did she see him if he was busy killing the person that she just delivered the order to?
Right. Where's the picture of the food outside? Oh, well, then she conveniently handed it to them. I mean,
oh, sorry for yelling.
No, I
am sorry. I'll try better.
Who said about yelling?
I in my chat, I just got so frustrated because it just doesn't make any sense. And I didn't mean to yell into the mic. When I yell, I'll back up so I'm not so loud. And I really apologize, guys. Go ahead.
You're good.
And they were already asleep. During the course of this, one of those roommates awoke, looked out her door, not knowing what was going on, and saw the defendant, who was dressed in black with black balaclava on, holding some sort of container in his hand.
Container?
And she saw him leave.
So he's running through with two things now.
A container. He's running through with the. I thought it was a vacuum handheld device. So now we had a shark, a little Dyson in one hand, in one fucking document that was presented to us at the preliminary hearings. It was a vacuum handheld device, guys. Now it's a container.
Yep. And as the blood should be flying everywhere, as he's slicing and dicing with his right or left hand, in the other hand, he's vacuuming the blood out of the air.
I'm picturing like the guy who does the sham wow, you know?
Yeah. It probably
those infomercials.
Jesus. Yeah. I mean,
look at me. I'm wiping up after my homicide, and I ran into.
Yep.
Oh.
Jesus.
Leave the house through the direction of the kitchen where that sliding door is that I mentioned before.
Uh-huh.
At approximately 4:20 that morning, so this would have been 15 minutes or so later,
or so,
Finn's car is seen on a surveillance camera for 1112 King Road, which is immediately next door to the west of 1122.
Wait a minute.
Leaving the area at a high rate of speed.
Do you hear the timing of this? So he murders two people, accidentally gets scared, We have no sign of scared. We have no sign of there was a struggle in the hallway. Her DoorDash is flying through the air because she's being stabbed to death. She's literally like being stabbed to death because he runs into her, okay? He runs into her in the hallway with the DoorDash. But the DoorDash was somehow neatly put on the counter with her name on it. It's not flying through the air. There's not blood on her fucking hamburger. There's none of that. And he actually found the time to go into her room and murder Ethan, who apparently can't wake up.
And look at
And then he leaves by 4:20.
Yep. Look at what Nick said too. If this was in a trial, how many times could you say hearsay to everything he said?
I know, Phoenix, the DoorDash isn't in the hallway. I'm saying it would have been if he would have ran into her. The way Bill is saying, he's saying he ran into Xana after picking up her DoorDash. So if he ran into her, why isn't the DoorDash flying through the air?
It's so bad.
If the court were to see that, or anybody in this courtroom would see that, you can see the car almost loses control as it makes the corner, heads north, and then turns to go south on Walinta, which is one of the only ways to get out of that part of town.
Okay.
The evidence would show.
You really got us, Scott. You got us.
I mean, yeah, he's guilty as charged, and he's going to enjoy it. I mean, he pled guilty. There's no, like, we lost. He pled guilty. So in the court of public opinion, Brian Kohberger is guilty. Legally speaking, Brian Kohberger is guilty. But
Right.
I'm just, we're pointing out the absurdity of this, because this is absurd.
Yeah.
That following that, the defendant in his Elantra drove south of Moscow. We know that he drove on the back roads because there are surveillance cameras on the main highways, Highway 95, that would have picked up the defendant's car if he'd gone that route. And
Okay.
they did not show the defendant's car on that route during the time.
Oh,
I'm going to
We
let
know
it play
that
a
he
little
went
bit more,
through a
Sammy,
variety
just
of
so we
back
can get
roads
through it a
during
little bit.
rural, isolated part of Latah County. About 4:48 that morning, the defendant's phone comes back on. And the evidence will show that that phone was located south of Moscow, likely at a side road intersection with
Likely.
Highway 95. From there, the defendant's phone activity tracks heading back north towards Pullman, Washington, where the defendant lived. About 5:26, starting approximately 5:26, various surveillance cameras in Pullman, Washington pick up the defendant's vehicle as he enters Pullman from the south and heads north and slightly west towards his apartment, where he arrives at approximately 5:30 in the morning. Later that morning, this Sunday, the 13th of November of 2022, Mr. Kohberger's phone returned to the area of King Road. We don't know exactly what he did, but it returned to that area. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning. He was there for about 10 minutes and then returned to his Pullman residence. About 9:30, the state's evidence will show, evidence taken from the defendant's phone, that he took a selfie of himself on his phone in what appears to be the bathroom of his Pullman apartment with a thumbs up. The defendant's phone then went to the Lewiston-Clarkston Valley, approximately 30 miles south of Moscow and Pullman. And the defendant is actually seen with his car at various businesses down there. This area is the confluence of the Clearwater River and the Snake River. Lewiston is Idaho's seaport. Large bodies of moving water down there.
Thanks.
In addition to tracing the defendant's activities, as I've just outlined, on the 13th and leading up to the 13th, the state's evidence will show that following Sunday, November 2, business records show that the defendant began searching for a K-bar knife and a K-bar knife sheath, as the state believes, to replace the one that was left at the scene of the murders. The evidence also will suggest that there were at least attempts by the defendant to delete or alter his purchase history on Amazon, where all these transactions had occurred. Later that week, the state's evidence will show
he bought the knife just
Mhm.
to commit the murders, or premeditated the murders, as they said.
Yeah.
Then he threw it in a large body of water. He must have really wanted to replace the exact same type of murder weapon and purchase. He was going to purchase it the same way.
He's a criminal mastermind, Purdy.
Jesus Christ.
And by
that
the way,
Mr. Koberger went
I love how Bill is giving us a geography lesson. He's so absent of concrete evidence that we're getting Bill Thompson, the geography guy. He's trying to replace Bill Nye. Like, this is ridiculous. Why do we need to know the geography of any of this?
to what we would call DMV, motor vehicle licensing here in Idaho, in Pullman, to change his car registration from Pennsylvania to Washington.
Because you told him to.
That's of note because Pennsylvania cars do not require a front license plate. The vehicles seen on the surveillance cameras of the defendant's car showed it didn't have a front license plate on it. At the time of the traffic stop by Deputy Duke in August, it was Pennsylvania plate, no front license plate.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Koberger proceeded to finish his semester of studies at Washington State University and returned to Pennsylvania for the holidays. Law enforcement at this point were aware of Mr. Koberger, had been accessing information about him, were trying to find him. They located him in Pennsylvania, and they conducted what's called a trash pull. During the nighttime hours, agents of the FBI, who assisted immensely with this case, working with the sanitation department back in this neighborhood in Pennsylvania, took trash that had been set out on the street for collection, sent the contents of that from the Pennsylvania residence of the defendant's parents to the Idaho State Forensic Laboratory, where the lab experts there were able to identify DNA on a Q-tip as coming from the father of the person whose DNA was found on the knife sheath that was next to Madison Logan's body in the bed.
Okay.
Subsequently, an arrest warrant was issued here in Idaho, and a search warrant was issued in the state of Pennsylvania with the assistance not only of the FBI, but the Pennsylvania State Police. Mr. Koberger was arrested at his parents' home to return to Idaho. Upon his return to Idaho, a DNA sample was taken from him, and it matched the DNA found on the knife
Eureka!
next to Maddie's body at the crime scene.
The
I can tell the court, in public, the weapon itself, the knife,
So hard
has
to
not yet been recovered.
Oh,
I can tell the court that the defendant's apartment in Pullman was searched, as well as his office. Spartan would be a kind characterization. There was virtually nothing there. Nothing of evidentiary value was found. And of course, we are now talking 6-8 weeks after the time of the killings.
but
In Pennsylvania, the
Birdie,
defendant's car was seized.
everybody saw what his car looked like when he was pulled over those multiple times. I'm so glad that they were so worried about Brian that they let him go on a road trip. But they pulled him over, and did anybody see what his car looked like? Did that look like a Spartan level cleaning car? It was dirty as fuck. It looked like my car, anybody's car that has dirt in it, that has garbage in it, that it was dirty on the outside and dirty on the inside. There was no Spartan level cleaning at all. Oh, and by the way, why would you bother with the trash pull and matching the father and him, and it matched his father, the Q-tip? Why wouldn't you just go get trash from him, and then you could have a direct match that way? Why would you let him go all the way to Pennsylvania, this mass murderer, this serial killer? We're just going to let him drive off. So bullshit.
Actually pretty much disassembled internally. And it also had been cleaned. There was a bucket of cleaner right beside it. I think we can all look to our own cars, in those compartments in the doors. We try to keep them clean.
The thing about the car that always
my
gets me
God.
is like, yeah, this part's crazy that he alleges that because his car has a bunch of junk in the side
But
pockets.
so that makes it, this is how weak their case is. Bill Thompson is literally comparing how he cleans his vehicle to what we don't even know if Brian cleaned his car this way. He's just alleging this. There's no facts based in this. This is a bunch of bullshit and assumption. I have yet to hear a concrete fact at all.
Well, and the thing too that's funny is, so his father rode in a bloody car. His father rode in a car with a bunch of evidence. He got pulled over twice. Like that's the part I'd never have understood.
When I murder somebody, by the way, if his search history showed that, oh, Amazon, he tried to alter his search history, I've never heard of that. And I also know, this is like a side story, but like my one friend who was married, who's secretly a lesbian, was cheating on her husband, and they shared an Amazon account, and she wanted to delete a purchase that she had on there that was like a sexy time toy, because then he would know something's up with her and this girl who he was sus with. And she couldn't figure out how to get it off of the search history.
I just think
I don't know how you do that.
I don't know how you could do it either. It's weird. And the fact that they're claiming he was trying to replace it is weird.
Where you put stuff, there's always some degree of crud in there. They were spotless. Vince's car had been meticulously cleaned inside. And the state would present to the jury that that was part of the defendant's plan in covering up this. The defendant has studied crime. In fact, he did a detailed paper on crime scene processing when he was working on his pre-doctorate degrees. And he had that knowledge and skill.
He wrote a paper for his major. Guilty.
The state submits that the evidence that I've given just a quick overview of, and that to present in court would consume weeks, which the state is prepared to do and has been prepared to do, would show that as the defendant has just admitted and pleaded guilty on November 13th, 2022, excuse me, Ms. Koberger entered the residence of 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. He did that with the intent to kill. We will not represent that he intended to commit all of the murders that he did that night, but we know that that is what resulted.
No, I know
he then killed intentionally.
Were you just commenting over it?
Yeah, no, I was saying, I know you can delete purchases, but when you have an account and the husband was worried about it, you can't delete it out of the log, like, of your purchases. So like it'll look deleted virtually, but the data, when you bring it up of like, what did I buy this month in your joint account, it will pop up like the metadata, not metadata, I don't know what it's called, but like the physical receipt.
It'd also go to your bank account, whatever card's on file.
Yes.
If they shared an account.
Yeah.
Willfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice forethought. Manny Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, and Santa Cruz.
Isn't he like a super seasoned prosecutor too? It just seems very out of line. Not out of line, just odd.
I mean, I understand the emotion. It's just
I understand it too. It's
completely sad, but why would you not have this emotion for the parents that are like, we want answers?
Look at how everybody is sitting in the courtroom too.
No, very odd.
It reminds me of Bernie Sanders, that Trump's first like thing where he like, do you remember that meme of Bernie Sanders where he was like clearly not wanting to be there? And it's like he's got other shit to do. That's everybody's like.
Everybody's tense.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh, yeah, that's very comforting. Do you see that? The way he just like tapped him? Almost like when you strike out at baseball. Like, all right, you suck. Here you go.
All right. Based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendants' explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Koberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonsalves, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of
Carrie.
Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count
This is probably way too hot of a take, but I just could tell. Like, this is weird. People are gonna. You could talk shit about this one, but it's genuinely my thought. I hear this guy's voice. I'm like, he's not a killer. He's not a killer. It's a weird assessment. I'm just saying, like, the guy doesn't. I don't know.
There's such a lack of emotion involved in this. First of all, for the fake emotion Bill Thompson showing, or maybe it's misplaced emotion for, getting multiple witnesses probably killed thanks to his shitty job. But it's also just like his Ashley Jennings, the woman, doesn't comfort him. It's that guy who gives an attaboy, nice try.
What
tap.
if let's put our tinfoil hats on here. Let's say that this all is what Sherlock Holmes was saying
Mm-hmm.
about this being a WITSEC extraction. What if the court is like, all right, Billy, you read it. You read what you were really about to sentence this kid to death for. You go in front of the entire country and you read so we can all see how fucking stupid you sound. How you have nothing.
It literally is nothing.
How's your career
I'm in
finishing up,
shock.
big dog?
It actually sounds worse than the PCA because he actually admits to the part that we all knew that the PCA in the grand jury indicted Brian for, they made it sound certain. And now Bill is going and saying, actually, that's not necessarily true.
And Brian can't wait to say guilty.
Yes, guilty. And look at it, and nobody's having any emotion.
Nobody's moving.
No, this is motionless. I mean, this is the craziest, most clinical, odd, tense. I mean, I understand, like, it's just, just feels wrong, but not because I don't know, it just feels wrong. This all feels misplaced and wrong and strange. Am I alone in this? This feels strange.
No, you're not. You're not. Somebody in the Hive, if you're still in here, I'm sorry, I forgot the username. They told me to watch something towards the end with like the detective and
Yeah, Phoenix, it feels forced.
yeah.
5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. Court finds that there is.
That's a good point. Does a person have to write their own confession letter? Does the person, because didn't it say it was prepared for him and that he signed it? I don't know. I'm trying to think of any technicality of how this could look like a real proceeding, but not be.
Well, no, it just depends on what you outline for your plea deal. If you outline the charges and you just say, yes, I did this, you don't have to go into the detail of how you did it, why you did it. You don't have to give a Chris Watts explanation. Like Chris Watts had to actually explain what he did to his own children.
What do
Even
you
though
think?
I think Nicole Kessinger is involved, by the way. That hussy got off. But
What do you think Robin means by this?
Birdie, a human being only for Ethan.
You're saying when
Xana-
Hitler read it.
Oh, let me wait. So only for Ethan, but he didn't say a human being for the rest? That is strange because the charge would read the same for everyone, for every count.
Let me try to find it here. When does he start?
All right. Based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendant's explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Kohlberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonsalves, how do you plead, guilty or not
Doesn't
guilty?
say it there.
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first-degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first-degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being.
See,
Kernodle
listen.
as first degree
Oh
for the murder
my
of Kaylee
God.
He
Gonzalez.
says it. Wait, now listen to this. All right. It is. Holy shit.
Why?
Human being is not just a label in a homicide case.
No.
It's a declaration of personhood and victim status.
Yes.
If it's
It's-
excluded for 2 of them, it could mean the court is legally forbidden to disclose their full identity or
Oh my
role
God.
in the case. They were participants in a sealed investigation, or their involvement in the case was not as straightforward as the public believes. Holy shit. This could support a theory that at least 2 of the victims were either informants, witnesses in a federal operation,
God.
connected to a
Mhm.
trafficking ring, or had sealed juvenile and intelligence or had sealed juvenile or intelligence status. Hold the hell on.
I have chills running up and down my body that I can't even contain right now.
We all just heard that, right? That what he said, he didn't say it.
This is why he couldn't pronounce Xana's name right too. And oh my God, this is why. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Hold on.
Because he made that distinction. He had to make that distinction. And this is why Ethan's parents sound so different than the rest. Don't you notice that?
Fuck yeah, I noticed that. Sorry, but hold on. I'm going to play that again for everybody.
Play it again.
Yes. Wow. Thank you to whoever pointed that out.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we're looking at is when Judge Hippler reads the guilty, when he's trying to get Koberger to confess his guilt, he says, Kaylee, Maddie, and then he says Ethan, he says Xana, a human being, Ethan, a human being. When you
No,
look
I don't
up,
think he said Xana a human being. I think
think he
he
does.
only said Ethan a human being.
well, okay, fine. Either way,
But
we're
we're
looking
gonna
into
play
if
it
he says it
again.
after.
But
Yeah.
if you say human being, I know it seems to us just like adjectives, but that's actually a legal point.
It's
That's
not
making
optional.
you a person.
It's
if you
not
don't
optional.
say human being, you're something else. Not saying you're an alien, meaning whatever that name is not considered legally.
The number one reason why that would be is because the status of the victim is classified, sealed, or in dispute.
Shut the fuck up.
All right, I'm going to play it.
Let's go.
Thank you. All right. Based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendants' explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Koberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Doesn't say it for them.
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not
Okay,
guilty?
he said
Guilty.
it.
So
You're
he
right.
says it for
He
Xana.
said it.
Yep, here we go again.
As to count 4,
Guilty.
as to
Oh,
count
wow.
2, how do you plead, Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right. The court will find that the defendant understands the nature of the charges and each offense and the possible consequences to him of his guilty plea. Court finds that there is.
Oh my God.
Why would a judge say a human being after some victims in a homicide but not other? The distinction
It changes.
absolutely matters.
Matters.
Yes, because you need legal precision. Oh my God, look at what number 2 says. So the first one is legal precision and charging language, meaning you need to be accurate, or you need to be accurate. Guys, number 2 says the implication that some victims may not be deceased. Oh my God, dude. Are you kidding me? What?
Okay, the third one says clerical error. But then why would the clerk fuck up for 2 but not the other 2? It would be across the board.
That's a hell of a typo for a senior judge.
Nah, it's all the same charges. So it's not like this one got raped, this one got stabbed, this one got shot for, you know what I mean? It's all the same. It's copy paste, copy paste.
I guess it
oh my
could
God,
be possible.
look at the tinfoil hat. And
It's
there's no verified autopsy. Remember, we've always said, what were the legal times of death? Why don't we have the times of death? Where's the autopsies? What are the injuries? We've been screaming this.
Hold on.
If the families act differently in court and avoid appearances, shut the front door. That's why it never made sense. Why Ethan acts different from Maddie's, from Kaylee's. They're not like a team. They're not like a unit.
Dude, I bet that we heard Ethan and Xana get killed on Linda Lane after they got into the fight at the frat thing. They couldn't let that entire investigation go on during the campus because there was already a parallel investigation going on. So they had to say the 2 informants maybe could. Oh my, I can't even get it out. It's so crazy. Again, yes, this is a tinfoil hat, but guys, you guys heard it with your own ears. The judge does not say human being. That is a legal distinction.
That's not an accident. That's not an accident. That might have been an accident for one. Then he would go back and correct the record because it's very important. These charges are very precise.
On the biggest case in the country? The biggest case in the country. And then it just so happens that the 2 people he doesn't say it for are related with Steve G only talking about those 2?
In summary, not explicitly stating human being in a guilty plea for murder while using it for others in legal context could indicate a deliberate choice intended to avoid acknowledging a core element of the crime. Oh my God.
So if 2 victims are called human beings, but 2 are not, does that suggest the legal system cannot confirm the others are dead human beings? In that context, this could mean they are missing, but not legally declared dead. There is
Where's
an identity.
The death certificates for Kaylee and Maddie? Can we see that? Do
why
those exist? Chat. Do those exist? Because I remember this being something on TikTok where they said we can't get the death certificates for 2 of them.
Look at this. Or in a wild psyop theory, they're alive and protected under WITSEC and witness relocation. Guys,
shut up.
Dude, Sherlock roams, and then when you tie it into all of this, back in the beginning of this stream that we started with, and look at how she's looking at him.
How happy are you that I said we got to go over Bill Thompson's thing today? Oh my God.
Has anybody picked up on how all of this connects? You know what? You could say that we're tinfoil hat crazy. Maybe we are. Shit, I don't care. But that makes a lot more sense than the freaking PCA in and or around and about this time for a literal quadruple homicide by a seasoned prosecutor.
Why would he start adding human being? But just forget it for those 2. In the most important moments of his charging for the guilty plea and asking those questions. the language is so precise for this. Birdie, my head is spinning.
I have to listen to that shit again. I
I
can't
feel like I want to puke or something.
I can't believe it.
This is so crazy.
All right. Based on the state's proffer and importantly, based upon defendants.
Wait,
admission-
Birdie. Remember you said Kaylee's father, Steve, didn't want to be in the courtroom? I know he was in the courtroom. And remember today we were texting back and forth and I said, even if it would be hard for me, and you said, how weird is it that he doesn't want to hold his wife's hand? He wants to just protest outside. Now he went in the courtroom, right?
Mhm.
But, oh, I'm sorry, I'm frozen. Why am I frozen?
You're good.
Okay. But he went in the courtroom.
I think.
And we said it was so weird that he wasn't there. Right? And he's been playing the parts that he's supposed to play when he's supposed to play it for certain times. Right? And I said, I think Steve's getting played. Well, what if he's playing us? Like he's doing what they're telling him to do when they're telling him to do it. You be angry now. You be on our side now. Now you go back to angry. Every time, though, he's the front and center person. Doesn't matter if he's angry. He's the front and center angry parent. Doesn't matter if he's not angry and he's pro kill Koberger. He's the front and center parent. Now he's back to being mad. But again, he's the front and center poster boy parent for these things. And he's the kid who has didn't say anything about a human being.
Yes. And I asked ChatGPT to explain this to us like we're 10. So the judge says, or it says, here's the example. Here's the 10-year-old version. Imagine you're in school and your teacher says, Jimmy didn't turn in his homework, a real student at this school. Then says, Sarah didn't turn in her homework, but doesn't say she's a student. You'd probably think, wait, why did the teacher only say Jimmy is a real student? What about Sarah? Now, when you switch to the court, in this case, the judge says, Brian is charged with killing Ethan Chapin, a human being. Then says, he's also charged with killing Kaylee Gonzalez, no human being this time. Your brain goes, what? Why are there only some called human beings? Here's what that might mean. The law says to be charged with murder, it has to be the killing of a human being. So the judge sometimes says that to follow the rule. But if the judge doesn't say human being for some people, maybe they don't want to legally say that person is dead. Maybe they aren't sure, or maybe there's a secret reason. And if this case is super weird and confusing like it has been, some people wonder if the ones not called human beings might be missing, misidentified, or even still alive but hidden.
Birdie. We should sit on this for a minute before we spin our wheels too much.
Yeah. I'm going to play it one more time just so we all hear it, and then we can call it.
Oh, it's not going to be a mistrial. They already pled, Lori.
Explicit admission to committing these crimes, the court finds there is a factual basis. Therefore, with respect to count 1, burglary, felony, how do you plead, Mr. Koberger, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 2, murder in the first degree, as it relates to the murder of Madison Mogan, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 3, as it relates to murder in the first degree for the murder of Kaylee Gonzalez, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 4, the first degree murder of Xana Kernodle, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
As to count 5, the first degree murder of Ethan Chapin, a human being, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Right.
They thought we wouldn't notice. Thank you, God, for the Hive. The Hive, man, just pointed out something so...
So if Ethan and Xana were killed,
and
Kaylee and Maddie are in danger, but and let's say there's I just can't. I can't. I think we need to sleep on this.
Stop. We got to sleep on that.
Great job, Sammy. Hive, you guys absolutely rocked it tonight. Thank you for everybody for tuning in. Couple of things. I might be live tomorrow morning, depending on if I can get up, get my workout in before Mrs. Birdie and I have to be on the road. If I have some time while she's getting ready, I can pop on for an hour. If not, with everything going on with this case recently, and now just hearing that, I personally am probably just going to focus on like shorts or TikTok, and I'm not going to be streaming through this holiday weekend. I will most likely be back on Sunday night. So
Birdie,
I hope
I'm going to be researching my face off tonight. So don't feel pressure to like be on tomorrow, but I'll send you whatever I find.
Yep. So I know Sammy, you're in here. Phoenix, you're in here. I don't know if DA is in here, but everybody else, please light up the inbox, birdiebombshell00@gmail.com with anything you can find on it. I believe that we just so happen to stumble upon
something major
that's real that you could say, but there's no proof of that. Well, there's a literal legal language a judge is supposed to say when there's
that's not an oversight and a mistake. Wait, where is there a written plea?
The only thing we got is this.
Does it say human being?
I looked through it. I don't even see their names on it. So unless it's been updated, if they ever post it, that'd be interesting.
Does anybody know if there's any updated documents? Phoenix, I know you're on top of this.
Wait, hang on. Is this it?
Okay.
So these are all
human being.
But these are all the same.
Yeah, they're all the same. But it mattered that he said that. It majorly matters.
It does, I believe, matter. Okay. Well, like I said, Hive, I'm going to take the long weekend. I'll be back on Sunday evening for sure. Maybe tomorrow morning. Just if you're not subscribed and have the notifications on, please hit the subscribe and the like button. It helps myself and other creators like Sammy out immensely, along with the Hive. I will be in the Discord immediately following this to debrief with everybody and get your thoughts. So that link is in my YouTube bio. Just click more and scroll down. Sammy, great work tonight. And
I'm sorry. Are you feeling how I'm feeling? Like
I'm sweating.
I'm so fucked up from this.
Well, all right. Everybody have a great 4th of July and stay safe. Don't blow your fingers off.
Yeah.
And
don't set any fires to any forests.
Yeah. And make sure that the fireworks completely out and watered down good before you approach it. So anyways, all right, Hive, have a great night. Thank you for tuning in. See you, Sammy. Cheers.
Bye, guys.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life.